What's up developers, it's Dari here from Code with Dari, and welcome back to a new video where we're going to have a look at how we could easily use DigitalOcean Spaces to store any type of documents from our Filament application. Now, DigitalOcean Spaces is an object storage service, and in simple terms, it's a storage architecture that manages data as objects, as opposed to other traditional storage architectures like file or block storage. This makes it incredibly easy and cost-effective to store and serve large amounts of data. It's around $5 per month for 250 GB of storage, which in my opinion is very affordable. You might wonder why this is useful, since Laravel, out of the box, has a storage as well, the storage directory in the root of your application. When you store files in Laravel storage, you might find limitations in terms of scalability. As your application grows and the need for more storage increases, you might need to overhaul your storage setup, which can be time-consuming and complex. But on the other hand, DigitalOcean Spaces is designed to scale effortlessly. This means that as your application grows, your storage can easily grow without any changes to your existing setup. This can save you a lot of time and resources in the long run. Lastly, DigitalOcean Spaces allows you to offload the storage needs from your main server. This will reduce the load on your server, potentially improving the performance of your application and ensuring a smooth user experience. Now, I've already opened my project in the browser. Let me quickly show it to you right here. And let me actually go back to light mode. All right. So as you might have noticed, I've already set up the database as well. These are steps I expect you to be able to do before watching this video. If not, I have linked my 4-hour Filament tutorial in the description down below. I quickly want to create a new migration and model. I'm not going to do anything fancy, we simply need one field, which is the Fileupload field. So let's navigate to the terminal for a moment, where I'm going to create a new model and migration by running the PHP artisan make me a new model, which we're going to name news, and we're going to add the -m flag to it. Once we hit enter, you'll see that our model has been created and our migration has been created as well. So let's navigate back to our editor, where we're going to open the database directory, migrations directory, and we're going to open the latest migration, which is for the news table. So we're going to use the table object, where we're going to create a new string. So basically a varchar named title. I'm going to create a long text named content, which is the actual content. And then I'm going to use my table object again, because I need a new string, which is for the image underscore path. And I'm also going to create a column for the original image name. And this is not 100% necessary, but I find it important since Filament hashes image names, which is a good thing, don't get me wrong, but it also gives us an option to store the original name, which we can then use again when users want to download the file. So let's use our table object. Let's make it a string and let's name it original underscore image underscore path. Now, I'm not going to define relationships or whatever. I don't really care about that in this video, but there's one quick thing left right here. Let's open our news model, and right below our has factory, we're going to define the protected, guarded, which is equal to an array. And let me create doc blocks as well. Next step, let's navigate back to the terminal because we need to create a Filament resource, which Filament has created a command for us named PHP artisan make Filament -resource, where we need to define the model name, which in our case will be the news model. Let's hit enter. All right, it has created our Filament resource. There's one more step left, which is running the PHP artisan migrate command. All right, now let's navigate back to, in my case, PHP Storm. Let's close our news model and our news migration. We don't need the database directory anymore. Let's open the app directory, http filament, where you will find our news resource. Now let's open it, where we got to define how creating and editing a news will look like right inside of the form method. So let's start off right inside of the schema right here, where I want to create a section, make, then I'm going to create a schema, pass in an array, where I'm going to create two groups. So let's say group, it's for forms components, make, comma, and let's clone it. All right. Now, right after our first group, I'm going to chain the schema again pass in an array. And I need two fields right here. One is for the name, which is a text input. Let's name it title, which is required. And I need the actual content, which I'm going to use a rich editor for, which I'm going to name content as well. And this one is required as well. Now, right after our second group, I'm going to chain another schema, pass in an array, where I'm going to use the Fileupload. And let me scroll up a little bit. Make. I'm going to name it image_path. I'm going to chain a label to it named image. I am going to tell the Fileupload that it is an actual image. So let's chain the image method to it. And I also, just for fun, want the image editor. Now, this will do the trick for now, but this won't store the original image name, which we have defined inside of our migration. To do that, Filament offers a method that we need to chain on our Fileupload, which is named store file name in. This method is used to store the original file name of a file being uploaded. It accepts a parameter, which is the column name where it should be stored in the table. And in our case, it will be original image name. So let's navigate back to Google Chrome. Let's refresh it. You'll find our newly created news resource. Let's create a new record. Let's give it a title of "This is my new news." The content is test, and let's actually upload an image. Our upload is successful. Now, let's click on create. In the top right corner, you'll see that our record is successfully created, but there is a small issue. The image is not previewing right here. And we can fix that by navigating back to PHP Store, opening the .env file, where you will find the app_URL. Now, Filepond requires files to be served from the same domain as the application. Right now, it's been set to localhost, so Filepond cannot find the image that is stored locally. So let's change this up. I'm using https:// filament-do.test. Now there might be a case, well, let's actually do it. Navigate back to the terminal, run php artisan optimize clear. All right, this has cleared our cache bootstrap files. Well, let's navigate back to the browser. Let's refresh it. And right here, you'll see that our image is being previewed. If we open the storage directory inside PHP Storm, the app directory and the public directory, and open the image that you'll see right here with the hash name, you will see that it has been stored locally, obviously, right? Because it hasn't used DigitalOcean Spaces yet, which makes sense because we haven't set it up. Now let's do that. Let's navigate back to Google Chrome and let's open the DigitalOcean Spaces front page where you will find a button named Get Started. Now once we click on it, you'll see that we're being redirected to the Spaces and Object Storage in the left sidebar where we could manage something. All right, right here, you could see that we have been redirected to the Create a Spaces bucket. In the left sidebar, it's under the Spaces, Objects, and Storage tab, where we need to set up our bucket. Now we have to specify how we want to set up our Spaces bucket first. We first have to set up the data center region, as you could see right here, as this refers to the physical location where your data is stored. It's important to choose a region that's close to your users to reduce latency and increase the speed at which the data can be accessed. I think by default it will find one in your region, but if you're using, let's say, a VPN, I'm pretty sure that you have to double check this. Now I'm going to stick to Amsterdam, so let's continue on to step number 2, which is the Content Delivery Network. This is basically a geographically distributed group of servers that work together to provide fast delivery of internet content. In DigitalOcean Spaces, enabling CDN can enhance the delivery speed of the data stored in Spaces to users across different parts of the world. Whether you should enable or disable it depends on your needs. If your application users are spread out geographically, it might be beneficial to enable CDN. However, if most of your users are located near the data center, you might not need to enable it. For now, let's just not check it. Then we need to finalize and create, where we need to choose a unique Spaces bucket name. I'm going to name it CWD for Code with Ari, DO. of one project, which is my own, where I'm going to store it, which is the first project. It's $5 and I've already linked my credit card, so I'm ready to create our Spaces bucket. All right, as you could see, it's set up, but we need to connect it to our Laravel application. So let's start off inside our Laravel app. What we basically need to do right here is setting up a new file system disk. You are not limited by Laravel, luckily, since you can set up as many as you want, which needs to be done right inside of the config directory, where you will find a filesystem.php configuration file. This file is basically responsible for setting up and defining all the file storage options known as disks for your application. It includes configuration for local storage, Amazon S3, and any other cloud-based storage services your application might need. If we scroll down, you'll see a disks array right here with multiple predefined disks. We got local, we've got public right here, which is the default one used for the images we uploaded for the first news that we created. And we got S3 right here. So let's basically copy it and let's paste it right below of it. And let's rename it to DO for DigitalOcean. And let's rename the environment variables where it needs to look for. So instead of AWS, we're gonna add a DO, and let's actually copy this and replace it for all the other fields. All right, but we do need to add 2 additional key value pairs right here. And let's go right below the throw, which is equal to false, and let's create a bucket underscore endpoint, which we're gonna set equal to true. This allows DigitalOcean Spaces SDK to treat the endpoint configuration options as a base URL for the bucket. This means that the bucket name will not be prepended to the endpoint URL. It can help avoid issues with some hosting providers or situations where you want to use a custom domain for your bucket. Now, the second variable that I want to add right here is the visibility. And let's go on the line below. Let's say visibility, which is equal to a string of public. Now this means that any file uploaded to the DigitalOcean Spaces bucket will be publicly accessible. This is useful for files that need to be accessed directly via URLs. I find this useful since I'm going to output the image as well. Not in this video, but in 99% of the cases, someone uploads an image or file and another user can see or download it. So that's it for the setup right here. Now let's navigate back to our .env file because we need to define a couple environment variables. And if I scroll down for a moment to the AWS keys right here, let's copy it, paste it right below, and let's rename them to DO. We can preview a couple of these, and the first one is the bucket right here. You can find it by navigating back to the browser, where you will find your bucket name, which we have basically set up ourselves, which is CWD DO. So if I navigate back to PHP Storm and paste it right here, our bucket is set for now. Then we have the default region, which we basically set up in the beginning, which is AMS3 for me. But if I navigate back to Google Chrome, you'll find the original endpoint, where right after the bucket name, you will find the default region, which is AMS3. All right, now one environment variable that's missing right here is the DO underscore endpoint. So let's copy it, let's paste it at the bottom, and let's set it equal to the origin endpoint that we have in the top right corner. All right, now we got 2 more left, which is the access key ID and the secret access key, which we need to generate in DigitalOcean. So let's navigate back to the browser. In the left sidebar, we need to scroll down for a moment and click on API. The naming here probably makes sense. We need to click on Spaces keys. And in DigitalOcean, Spaces keys are credentials consisting of a key and a secret that allows you to authenticate and interact with DigitalOcean Spaces storage services. So let's click on Generate New Key. We're going to name it CWDDO. Let's create an access key. It takes a minute to generate one, so please be patient right here. Now let's copy the access key that we see right below access key. Let's navigate back to PHP Storm and let's paste it right after our DO access key ID. Navigate back to Google Chrome and let's copy our secret key, which is in this information box right here. Navigate back to PHP Storm, paste it right after the secret access key. All right. Now there's one more thing left that I would like to modify in my code, and that is pretty nice when you want to work with multiple environments. Let's navigate back to Google Chrome for a moment. This bucket right here is one big folder where all files and folders will be stored. But whenever you work with multiple environments, let's say a local environment, what we're doing right now, the staging environment, which is a replica of the production environment used for testing, and a production environment. You don't want to store all files that you're uploading in the same directory, right? You rather have it separated in a local, staging, and production subdirectory right here. So let's actually set that up as well. Now let's navigate back to PHP Storm and let's open our file systems configuration file. And right below the endpoint, we're going to create a new key value pair. We're going to name it directory_env. And we're going to use the environment method where it needs to look for a key named do_directory. Now let's copy it, open our .env file, and right below our endpoint, paste it, and let's set it equal to local. Now whenever you create your staging environment, you simply need to change this to staging, and for your production, you simply set it equal to production. Now, let's navigate back to our newest resource. All right, because we do need to make some changes right here. Now, we first need to tell our Fileupload that we're going to use a different disk for our image path, and we're going to set it equal to do, which is the driver that we have just created. Secondly, well, this is technically optional, but we need to define the directory as well. So let's navigate back to the news resource and let's chain the directory method to it. We could use the env method right here and directly use our do_directory variable, but I prefer using the config directory right here, since it allows Laravel to cache the configuration. When you use the env method directly, Laravel can't cache the environment variables, and it has to fetch them each time they are used, which can slow down your application. Now let's define the path. It needs to look inside the file systems file. It needs to find the disks array, where we have a disk named do, and it needs to find the directory_env. Now what this will do is basically store it inside one local directory or staging or production. So what I recommend to do is concatenating a string right in front of it of news \, which will basically store it inside a directory named news/local/filename, which I'm more a fan of. All right, one more thing left. We need to chain the disk method, where we need to tell which disks need to use, which is do. If we navigate back to Google Chrome right now, open our local host, refresh it, which is an error where I wanted to run into, because you will see that Laravel is unable to find the portable visibility converter class. And this is happening because the S3 fly system adapter, which provides the class, is not installed inside of our project. So let's navigate to the terminal for a moment, and let's run the composer require leak \fly system -aws -s3-v3 add the version, so double brackets, caret 3.0. And we're going to install it with all dependencies. If we hit enter, you'll see that it's installing the package. All right. If we navigate back to Google Chrome, refresh it, you will see that the error is gone, but the image as well, because the previous image was stored locally. So it can't find it right now. But let's not edit this one. Let's create a new record right here. Let's name it news2. Content is news2. And let's upload the image. Let's click on create. It has created our post, but it's not previewing the image, which is fine for now. I'll come back on it. Let's navigate back to our bucket. Let's refresh it, where you will see that a new directory has been created called news. And this is correct because we said that it should store it inside a news directory, where we have then defined the do_directory environment variable, which is equal to local. And once we open it, you'll find our actual image that we have uploaded. So let's copy the endpoint, and you will see that we have successfully uploaded our image. Well, it's not 100% successful because the image is not being previewed. And if we actually inspect the page and go to the console, you'll see that it's throwing an access right here because it cannot fetch the image. And it basically says, has been accessed by course policy, no access control allow origin error. Now this error happens when an application attempts to make a cross-origin request, but the server doesn't include the appropriate access control allow origin header in the response. This header tells the browser that the application is allowed to make cross-origin requests. Without it, the browser's same origin policy will block the request for security reasons. And of course, DigitalOcean has a super quick fix for this. So let's open our bucket and let's click on Settings, where you will find a header named Course Configuration right here. Let's click on Add, where we need to define the URL, which needs to be identical to your current URL because we're going to give access to that specific URL to retrieve the image, which is https://filament-do.test. And we need to define which method is allowed. I'm basically going to select all of them, and we don't need to add any allow headers or access control max age. Now let's save the course configuration. If we navigate back to our Filament project, refresh the page, you will see that our image has been loaded successfully. In this video, we walked through the process of using DigitalOcean Spaces to store files from our Filament application. We've discussed what DigitalOcean Spaces is, why it's useful, and how to set it up for your Laravel or Filament application. We also created our simple model migration, Filament resource, demonstrating how to upload images to our DigitalOcean Spaces. Now lastly, we addressed how to deal with course policy issues to ensure that our image is displayed correctly. If you do like my content and you want to see more, leave this video a thumbs up, and if you're new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button.